Several days ago, my partner had her birthday, so I thought, why don't I make a video talking about one of her favorite animals? And her favorite animal that is not a cat is mola, aka sunfish. Sunfish is not exactly an unpopular fish in this day and age, but what many people don't know is mola is not the only genus of sunfish. So, let me bring up the question. What exactly is sunfish? First of all, I would like to clarify that there are actually one or two other unrelated group of fishes that are sometimes called sunfish, but this video is specifically talking about this kind of sunfish. That's why it's actually somewhat better if people start calling them mollas. For this video, I'm just gonna call them sunfish because that's the most common name for them. Sunfishes are bony fishes, and they are ray-finned fishes. They are classified in the Tetraodontiformes order, which is typically known as the order that hosts pufferfish in it. Though, unlike most members of Tetraodontiformes order, adult sunfishes don't have plates, nor spiky scales, nor any armor-like structure that this order is typically known for. Sunfishes are classified in the Molidae family. And yeah, if we are talking about sunfish in general, this would be the level that we're talking about, Molidae family. They got the name from the Mola genus, which is the most famous sunfish, to the point that people refer to sunfishes as mola. Mola itself is the Latin word for millstone, and it became their genus name because they are roundish. Well, not exactly, but hey, close enough I suppose. Earlier, I did say mola is not the only genus of sunfish. There are three actually, which are mola, masturus, and ranzania. Mola is further divided into three species. Meanwhile, masturus and ranzania each has only one species. So, all in all, it's still quite easy to remember, and it's actually quite easy to identify their species. I'll show you how later. Oh, by the way, some say they are called sunfish because they like to bask under the sun, but some people say they are called sunfish because, well, they look like sun. I mean, to be fair, this one is quite far-fetched. I made a similar remark when I talked about heosemis before, but this one is not even close to looking like a sun if I'm gonna be honest. They are also called moonfish by some people because they look like a moon, which is also a questionable take, but hey, I think they look closer to a moon compared to a sun. Though, I personally prefer their German name, which is Schwimmenderkopf. It basically means swimming head. And honestly, I do see the vision. Yeah, they kinda look like if you take a generic image of fish, take the head, and make it a functioning fish. But anyway, as a whole, they can be found in tropical and temperate oceans, especially the warmer waters. Though, if you are looking at specific species, their distribution will be more limited, or at least a lot more common in specific regions. For example, Mola alexandrini is not exactly rare, but can mostly be found in the southern hemisphere, which is why they are called the southern sunfish. Meanwhile, Masturus lanceolatus can be found throughout the world oceans, but they are so rare that the observation map looks barren in comparison. Next, let's talk about their morphology. Sunfishes are generally big. They can grow up to 3 meters long, or even exceeding that. However, not all of them are built the same. Mola tecta, for example, can only reach around 2.4 meters as far as we know, but that is still really big, compared to Ranzania, which only grew to around 1 meter long. To be fair, that would still be considered a big fish. So yeah, they might look white when viewed from the side, but they are laterally flattened. Well, not as flat as the actual flatfish is, but they are still proportionally flat. Their body looks leathery because they are not covered with the typical fish scale form. It is still covered with denticles though, so the skin can be quite rough. They actually have the typical fins that you could find in most fishes, but the shape, size, and location are simply different. This is their dorsal fin, and this is their anal fin. Oh, and of course, this is their pectoral fin. However, this, their tail, is technically not a caudal fin, and you could say it's technically not a tail. This structure is called clavus, formed by the combination of their anal and dorsal fin. Actually, let me show you their skeletal morphology because why not? What's most likely noticeable from this is the fact that a lot of their bones seems to be missing. Well, that's because their bones are quite literally missing. The majority of their skeleton are cartilage. However, that's also why they can grow to this big of a size. In terms of mass, they are the largest bony fish, exceeding 2,700 kilograms. That's 2.7 tons, by the way, only beaten by some cartilaginous fishes. Though, in terms of length, oarfish and some sturgeons do beat them. Another thing to notice, they have a low number of vertebrae. In fact, they have the lowest number of vertebrae among all extant fish, as far as we know at least. When you look at their mouth, they look like they have buck teeth. This is their beak, or at least beak-like structure, formed by the fusion of their teeth, and it makes it impossible to close their mouth. Not only that though, their beak has a cleft in the middle, hence making them look like they have 4 teeth protruding on the front. This is not unique to them, by the way. Most members of their order share this trait, and that's exactly why they are named Tetraodontiformes. Tetra means 4 and odonto basically means tooth. And what I've been telling you is their general morphology as a family. Now let's look at each species. To identify them, you only need to look at 2 things: their head and their clavis, aka their tail. First, let's start with the easiest one, Masturus lanceolatus. Their clavis has this protrusion. That's why they are called the sharp-tailed sunfish. None of the other have this protrusion, which is why this is the easiest one to identify. Next, Ranzania laevis. This one has a relatively flat clavis, almost as if you chop their tail off. And this is also the smallest of them all, and their head looks smooth and pointy. That's why they are called the slender sunfish. Now on to the actual molars. Mola mola would be the easiest one to identify among the 3. They have scalloped clavis, and that's basically enough to identify them. Oh, by the way, this is the ocean sunfish, aka the common sunfish that most of you have probably heard of or even seen. Next, Mola alexandrini. This one has a rounded clavis and the head is bumpy. This is the largest sunfish, hence they are also known as the giant sunfish. The largest specimen ever recorded is apparently around 4.6 meters, which is definitely something. Last, which is also the last one to be discovered by the way, they are described and published in 2017, is Mola tecta. They have rounded clavis and smooth head. If you aren't sure about it, you could check this indentation around their clavis. This indentation pattern is specific to them. And yeah, like I said, it's relatively easy to identify each species. You could also check their pattern, but it might be difficult to observe. And in my opinion, looking at their clavis and head is the easiest way to identify them. Though, we've only been talking about their adult form. Their larvae are around 2 millimeters long and they are roundish. And you could see the fact that they still have the typical fish tail here. Meanwhile, this is their fry. That's the stage right after their larva. These are around 2.5 millimeters. And you might have seen it in the larval stage image, but yes, they have spines, unlike their adult form. Larvae lost their tail when developing into fries, but the spines develop even more. Now this looks like a sun. If they are named sunfish because of this form, then I would get it, but I don't think that's the case. Anyway, next, let's talk about their ecology. But before that, many people think sunfishes are mostly found around the ocean surface, in which that could technically be correct because, well, it's simply easier to observe them when they are close to the surface. In reality, sunfishes are mostly active at the mesopelagic zone, deeper than 200 meters. Like I said earlier, they inhabit warm water. From time to time, they ascend to the surface and bask under the sunlight, positioning themselves so that their side faces the sun. This behavior hinted to the fact that environmental heat is crucial for their survival. However, basking is not the sole purpose of them coming to the surface. This behavior allows bird and cleaner fishes to feed on the ectoparasites on sunfish's body, forming a somewhat mutualistic symbiosis. Some articles stated that if these birds get too rough on their quote-unquote cleaning duty, the sunfish will spit water at them, which is an understandable behavior, somewhat expected, but still quite funny nonetheless. In the past, we thought sunfishes are drifters, letting winds and waves move them around, even calling them megaplanktons. They don't even have swim bladders after all. However, now we know that they are actually decent swimmers. They are even observed leaping out of the water, most likely to dislodge parasites. Like other members of their order, they mostly swim by flapping their anal and dorsal fin. Some articles stated that their pectoral fins are too small for steering, so instead, they squirt water jet through their gills to steer. When they are swimming, they can reach around 3.2 kilometers per hour, which is slower than a human walking speed, but hey, if it works for them, then it's fine. Because they are not a fast swimmer, we assume they mostly eat jellyfishes and salps. While it is indeed true that they consume jellyfishes and salps, sunfishes are actually generalists, as you can see in this graph here. While yes, most of these are typically slow-moving animals, almost one-fourth of it are ray-finned fishes, which could be quite fast, so don't underestimate their mobility. On the contrary though, Ranzania is known to mainly feed on fast-moving squid, and that points to the fact that Ranzania are fast and agile, at least when they are hunting. Adult sunfishes are generally solitary. This, combined with the fact that most of them are quite slow, should make them susceptible to predation. However, their rough and leathery skin helps deter smaller predators. Though, that didn't help when bigger predators have their eye on them. You know, like orcas, sharks, and also sea lions. Actually, you know that one meme image of a sea lion biting onto a sunfish? If you try to Google it, you could actually find several similar images. So yeah, this is not exactly a rare occasion. As long as their internal organs are still intact, they could survive without a chunk of their body. Of course, it would reduce their life quality, but hey, as long as you live, something good might happen, you know? Never give up. Anyway, while their adults are solitary, their fries form a school. Female can lay around 300 million eggs per clutch. Yup, you heard that right. 300 million. 8 zeros. These eggs are around 1 millimeter in diameter, and fertilization occurs externally. These will hatch into larvae with around 2 millimeters in length and less than a gram in weight. Like I said earlier, they will develop into fries. As fries develop into adult, the spines will disappear and the dorsal and anal fins will develop. As they develop their swimming ability, they will leave their school, living their solitary adult life. But think about it. They started as 2 millimeters long larvae, barely reaching 1 gram of weight. Those things grow into a giant of up to 3 meters long and 2.7 tons of weight. That's 2.7 million grams, by the way. Their mass could increase by 2.7 million times, while their size could increase by, let's say, around 1,500 times. A human baby is around 50 centimeters tall. Multiplied by 1,500, that's around 750 meters tall. You could fact check me on this, but as far as I know, there is only one building that exceeds 750 meters, which is the Burj Khalifa. The second tallest building is only 679 meters tall. So yeah, imagine the proportion. Sunfishes are phenomenal growers. Many people love sunfish for various reasons. Divers love to swim alongside them. I've seen a lot of plushies or other kinds of merch depicting them. I've even heard people liking them simply because their name is fun to pronounce. The Mola or Mola Mola name, that is. Even the Japanese name, which is Mambo, is somewhat fun to pronounce. They even became a Pokemon earlier than some of the most famous fishes like lionfish, saw shark, arapaima, alligator gar, or even swordfish. None of those fish have been made a Pokemon yet, but sunfish did. Oh, and they even exist in Monster Hunter. Still, even though they are quite popular, we actually don't know that much about them. What we know is mostly based on our observation on the mola mola, aka the common sunfish. Other species might have some specific behavior that we haven't observed. At the very least, their popularity keeps people interested in them. Hence, more and more observations will be done, and that would also mean we will definitely learn more about them. But for now, let's just learn what is known. And that's all for now. Oh, by the way, there are somewhat similar looking but unrelated fishes called oppa, and those are also called the moonfish, even sunfish by some people. That's why I always prefer scientific names. Anyway, enjoy your day.